On November 4th, 2025, Democrats had huge successes in the 2025 elections. Zoran Mamdani, with his historic and inspiring campaign, claimed victory as the next mayor of New York City. We had victories in the governor races in New Jersey and Virginia, and multiple ballot measures in other local races across the country. Despite the shutdown currently ongoing, the Democrats have the momentum and our support to keep fighting. We need them to keep fighting to protect our vulnerable from the unaffordable increases in their health insurance premiums. With these wins, surely the Democrats won't back down now, not without guaranteeing their demands, right? Right. Time to primary these fucks. In today's video, we will discuss the following, starting with an election recap of the 2016 general and primary elections to showcase our country's dismal voter participation. After that, I will show you some resources to assist you in the candidate discovery process. With that foundational information, we will move on to discussing candidates for the special election in Texas's 18th district and candidates for the first 5 primary elections in 2026. Those states are Texas, Arkansas, North Carolina, Mississippi, and Illinois. With this information, whether you are a new voter looking for information on how to vet candidates and determine if they are worth supporting, or someone looking to run their own congressional campaign, you will learn what policy messages and campaign tactics are required to meet the moment we live in. Let's get started. During the 2016 election, this was the first election that I started paying attention to. Prior to that, I was too busy working to afford an apartment of my own. It was only in 2015 that I had a livable income and an apartment that I then decided to learn more about our election processes and the candidates running. During this time, I collected data from the primary and general elections to break down the voter participation by each state. We will start with the general election and work backwards to the primary. On screen now, you can see the results for each line of the 4 main candidates. Again, for those of you who are new to politics or were not following it back in 2016, those candidates are Hillary Clinton for the Democratic Party, Donald Trump of the Republican Party, Gary Johnson was the Libertarian Party's choice, and Jill Stein was the candidate for the Green Party. Now, I understand most people don't enjoy a large spreadsheet in their face, especially if any of you out there are watching on a phone screen. I apologize. So let me switch this from the raw data here to a lovely bar graph. Now we can have a clearer idea of how much support the candidates received. First thing I noticed is how Hillary and Trump were both very close in the popular vote. When all was counted, I believe the official vote was Hillary was up by 3 to 3.5 million more votes than Trump. And just to address anyone wondering how accurate these numbers I have here are, the data is copied from what was reported by Politico's election results in 2016. The link is on screen and it'll be in the information below. Some of those numbers don't have all the vote results at 100% reporting, and so that's one reason why the numbers may vary or may not match a source that you have. But don't miss the bigger picture here. Despite winning the popular vote, the rules for our presidential election makes that point moot. The winner is determined by the Electoral College. A candidate needs to campaign for victories in as many states as possible to earn enough electoral delegates to win. In 2016, 97.6 million people did not vote for any candidate or voted only for down-ballot races. Thinking back to the discourse around the election at that time, many of Hillary's supporters looked at those 97.6 million people, those non-voters, and screamed, "What the fuck? Are you sexist? Racist? Do you hate democracy? Why didn't you support her? Were you a Bernie bro? Oh, you didn't vote for Hillary, so you know you supported Trump, right?" So many accusations, as opposed to just asking Americans why they didn't vote or what policies are they looking for in a candidate, and listening. For those who supported Hillary in 2016, I agree. She would have been better than Trump if elected. But that is a low bar. And her being not Trump is not a message to excite millions of people to vote for her or any other candidate. There are some fair claims, such as sexism was a factor. I have no doubt it was. Many Republicans, various independents, and even some Democrats are sexist or racist or some other form of bigot with deplorable views. The results of the 2016 election wasn't so much that Trump won, but rather that Hillary's campaign failed to earn enough votes to overcome the voter suppression tactics by Republicans and the Electoral College system still used by the United States. They blame Bernie supporters despite many of them voting for Hillary anyway. For transparency, I was not one of them. I lived in Pennsylvania and still do. I voted for Bernie in the primary, but voted for Jill Stein in the general election. But Democrats down ballot. Many of us Bernie supporters, we tried to explain what we were looking for. We wanted single payer health care, a higher minimum wage, and ending military conflicts around the world. Your candidate didn't listen, made no effort to energize the base of the party, and as a result, failed to win the presidency. Now, if you think, wow, 57% voter participation in the United States, that is terrible, not only are you correct, but let's see how lower it goes for the primary elections. Here are the numbers for the 2016 primary. Again, starting briefly with the ugly chart that I imagine even on the largest computer monitor is not quite legible. I apologize. But if you are able to pause the video and zoom in and enhance even, you might be able to see how your state voted in the 2016 primaries and take note of how they were scheduled. Primary elections in the United States do not happen on the same day. And back in 2016, even in some states, the primary election for each party were scheduled on different days. When these primary campaigns began in 2015, I went into the election with an open mind and heard out the dozen or so Democratic candidates and the 2 dozen or so clowns on the Republican side. Bernie was my preferred choice based on his policy platform. By the time voting began in Iowa on February 1st, the Democratic side was narrowed down between Bernie and Hillary. For the Republicans, Donald Trump took the lead early on, despite being considered a joke by most. By the end of the primaries, he became the nominee, defeating Ted Cruz, John Kasich, Marco Rubio, and about a dozen other Republican nobodies whose names aren't even worth remembering. Changing over to the more visually pleasing bar graph, we can now clearly see only 56.4 million people out of a total available 226.8 million voters had voted in the primaries, so slightly less than 25% of all Americans participating. When voters complain in the general election, how are these two people our only options? It is because most political offices don't have great political candidates running, and when they do, only 25% of us participate in the primary elections. And again, this is not to shame voters. Many of you are busy trying to survive or are disengaged from politics because of the disgust in our system and having your trust broken repeatedly over the years. I hear you, but things won't improve by not participating. Some voters just assume when they hear about a good candidate, oh, I like their policies, I'll vote for them in November. Only for that candidate to not be on the ballot in November because they lost their primary. And for scale here, this chart doesn't fully show just how small the voter participation is in the primaries. The y-axis here is set to 25 million, just to make it easier to see how the other primary candidates receive the votes from the election. Here's the same chart with the y-axis modified to fit the non-voters on the chart. Oof. Yeah, the non-voter bloc is the largest in the country with more support than any other political party. Of course, to reiterate, being a part of the non-voters won't help improve our country. When we get to the general elections, many assume the parties did their best job in vetting candidates to be elected. When you look around and you think of your lived life experience and ask yourself, is life going well overall? Do we have political leaders addressing the needs of the average person? Unless you're a centimillionaire or billionaire, you will most likely be saying no to those questions. We, the people, choose who the candidates are, but that only happens if we participate. When we abdicate our democratic responsibilities, it allows for corruption and authoritarianism to take over. Bernie was the stronger candidate in 2016. And while no, I don't have the ability to see alternate realities, but I still strongly believe had Bernie been the Democratic nominee, he would have won. The minimum wage would be $15 an hour by now. We would have a single payer universal healthcare system, and we would have avoided this fascist hellscape that we live in now. But that didn't happen, and I don't want to dwell on the past any longer. What we need to focus on now is how we replicate wins like Zoran Mamdani's across the country. We need to find candidates and mobilize support for them to give them a fighting chance against the corrupt and well-funded oligarchy. The establishment politicians, the robber barons who fund them, those are our enemies and who we must organize to defeat in 2026 and 2028. For us to be successful, we need to understand the timeline we are working with. To do that, I have here a resource. This is from the National Conference of State Legislatures.org. And what they've done is they have out the full 2026 state primary election schedule. And then so they have it in two ways. You could look for your state alphabetically here, or you can scroll down here. And they also have it listed as in chronological date as well. And for that, that's what we're going to focus on here. So the first primary contests will be on March 3rd of 2026, Arkansas, North Carolina, and Texas. And then after March 3rd, we have Mississippi on March 10th and Illinois on March 17th. And then we'll talk more about the other states as we get closer to those dates. The other nice thing with the National Conference of State Legislatures is they also have a summary for the filing deadlines per state. As we talk about each state's primary in more detail, we'll review their deadlines. Of the states that have primaries on March 3rd, you can see Arkansas is listed right here. Their deadline is already coming to an end on November 11th. So as this video will probably be released either on that day or day or two after that, whoever the candidates are in Arkansas, those will be the choices in the primary, and there won't be any changing that. One of the difficulties with primaries, the dates constantly change, they vary by state to state, and by the time you think you are ready to start looking at the information, it may already be well past the date to make any changes. So those are the filing deadlines. In terms of a resource of how to find candidates that are running, one site is Ballotpedia, and what they do is they collect information of the candidates who are running in different districts and Senate seats and even in local elections. And you can also visit this site to view the results of past elections. There's plenty of information out there for those who want to know more. You just have to know where to look. When looking for candidates, knowing which organizations to trust is a necessity. Based on the policy priorities I look for, such as Medicare for All, raising the minimum wage, ending money in politics, and putting an end to military conflicts globally, here are 3 organizations putting forth candidates that addressed all or some of those items listed. The first here is Track AIPAC. For those unfamiliar with the AIPAC organization, what that stands for is the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. For decades now, they have supported candidates in U.S. elections who have supported pro-Israeli policies. Now, that alone wouldn't sound like a terrible thing, but they have spent millions of dollars influencing our elections just to get candidates who continue supporting Israel despite their ongoing genocide of Palestinians. The goal of Track AIPAC is to be a counter to the AIPAC spending. By organizing and putting a spotlight on congressional candidates who are not taking AIPAC money, if you are a single-issue voter and that issue is ending genocide, particularly the genocide in Palestine, then Track AIPAC is the group for you. They have been endorsing dozens of candidates across the country, some of whom we will learn a little more about in this video. Moving on to another group is Our Revolution. After Bernie's 2016 campaign came to an end, his movement to fight for change continued. The work of Our Revolution supports candidates who share the vision of Bernie Sanders, the vision of a government that works for all of us, not just the oligarchs and the billionaire class. As you scroll down, they will show their endorsements and winning candidates. So one of their most recent victories, the mayor-elect of New York City, Zoran Mamdani. And they also endorse many local positions. And then when you get to the bottom here, here's what they ask all of their candidates to agree to. What Our Revolution is fighting for is the rejection of corporate and billionaire money, opposing government contracts for oligarchs, breaking up big tech and monopoly power, overhauling campaign finance to get big money out of politics, and shutting the revolving door between public service and private industry. All of which I personally find to be agreeable. The last group I use to find candidates is an organization called Justice Democrats. They are another organization that, like Our Revolution, was formed in the aftermath of Bernie's 2016 run. Bernie's run proved that Americans wanted candidates fighting for progressive policies, but it also showed that the infrastructure was not yet in place to overcome the political establishment. In the 2018 elections, Justice Democrats formed and endorsed several candidates who won their elections, such as AOC, Ayanna Pressley, Rashida Tlaib, and Ilhan Omar. These four have been doing fantastic work since elected, and it's important we elect more candidates like them. Currently, Justice Democrats has 9 members in the House and have endorsed 4 more so far. To be a Justice Democrat, like Our Revolution, there's a list of policies they must agree to. The list for Justice Democrats is a little more comprehensive. They have it broken down to a few categories. They got an economy for all, society for all, and democracy for all. And again, the link for them will be in the description if you want to click on and read more about this. Before we continue reviewing individual candidate pages, I first want to share some great words by another YouTuber. Their channel here is Resistor Vic, and I've come across a few of their videos before, and so far I've only heard good things. I highly recommend viewing his channel and checking out the video that I'll be sharing 2 parts from. He was asked about candidates in Kentucky's 6th District and discusses a fair litmus test for looking at congressional candidates across the country.
Folks, you either need to find another candidate or else light a fire under one of these 4. Here's my test. First, look at incumbency. None of these folks are incumbents. One held office once and lost re-election. Another lost a city-level race. The other 2 couldn't find any record of holding or running for office before. Next comes finances. Where's the money coming from? And who's endorsing them? One candidate has an establishment endorsement, and that can be a red flag. Another has a Vote Vets endorsement. The other 2, nothing, and they have anemic fundraising. 2 of the candidates are doing fair with mostly small donors, nothing alarming, nothing inspiring. And then the big metric. Are they empty suits? And I'm sorry, but from what I could find, every one of these Democrats fits that description. Their websites and social feeds are pure platitude. It honestly looks like the same person built every site, it just swapped out the names. They don't tell you what they stand for. They don't tell you what they'll fight for if they win. What is their platform? That's not how you win a congressional race in a deep red district. The 2026 election could be very, very bad for Republicans, but only if Democrats put up solid, energized candidates. You can't just say, I'm against Republicans, or I don't like Trump, vote for me. That's not enough. Kentucky 6, don't miss this moment. Either find a better candidate or light a fire under the ones you've got. And if you're one of those four candidates I'm talking about, the reason I'm not saying your names is simple. You haven't done anything yet that makes your name worth saying.
Everything stated by Vic, I agree with. Where I will be expanding on his take is in discussing the policy components of a candidate's campaign. Texas was one of the 3 states with primaries on the first day of voting in 2026, although they first need to finish a special election runoff in their 18th district. Just a quick recap on why that is. Back on March 5th of 2025, the previously elected representative, 70-year-old Sylvester Turner, had died. The seat has remained vacant since then. In fact, as a quick note here, Sylvester has not been the only member of Congress to die this year. So far, 3 geriatric Democratic House members have died. The second being Arizona's 7th District, Raul Grijalva, 77 years of age, who died on March 13th, 8 days after Turner. Then, 2 months later, on May 21st, Gerald Connolly, 75, of Virginia's 11th District, joined Turner and Grijalva. Look, any of us could die at any moment. Heart attack, cancer, stroke, hit by a car, gun violence. Many ways that any of us could go at any moment. But the older you get, the likelihood of you dying increases. We should not be trusting our representation to anyone over the age of 70. And even if they don't die, their mental capacities start declining. Even Bernie Sanders, as much as I appreciate the work he continues to do, it's time every geriatric member of Congress steps aside. Even Nancy Pelosi of California's 11th District announced a few days ago she won't seek re-election. Should have been a decade ago, and her corrupt insider trading in Congress will not be forgotten. But good, glad she isn't running. More people in that district can now focus on learning about and hopefully supporting Saikat Chakrabarti. Bringing the focus back to Texas, Texas dragged their feet to get a replacement for Turner's seat. This resulted in the special election being scheduled the same time as the other elections on Tuesday, November 4th. In this special election, there were 16 candidates ranging from various different parties. Of the 76,084 votes cast, I'm not sure what percent of turnout that would be for the district, but the results were no candidates earned a majority outright. And so the 2 candidates with the most votes, Christian Menefee and Amanda Edwards, are moving on to a runoff election. And as of right now, no date has been scheduled for the runoff election. Now, some of you may have noticed Christian Menefee had the endorsement of the group Our Revolution. So let's go to his campaign page and learn more and see if we can determine if he's a candidate that is indeed worthy of supporting. So here's his homepage. Now, on any one of these sites, there's an important tab that you want to look for. It'll either say policies, priorities, issues, something that goes over their platform, what they believe in. And so what Christian he has some issues here. So let's read about his issues. Texas first priorities. And then the way he has it laid out on his site is he's got large topics here. So guaranteeing access to healthcare, protecting and strengthening public education. Well, I won't read all of them to you. There's 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 different issues that Christian is highlighting and telling you that this is what he cares about, what he is going to fight for as the next representative in Texas's 18th district. Now, everyone's priorities will slightly differ in terms of what they're looking for in a candidate. The 3 things that I look for is a candidate who supports a single-payer universal healthcare system, raising the minimum wage, and ending the U.S. military conflicts around the world, and including our military and financial support to the IDF carrying out a genocide against Palestinians. So let's take a look at a few of these and see if the details line up with the things I'm looking for. So if we click on this, guaranteeing access to healthcare, we'll read more. All right, so let's read this. Healthcare is not a privilege, it's a basic human right. No one should be denied care because of their income or insurance status. When Christian's brother received life saving cancer treatment at MD Anderson, covered by TRICARE, because of their parents' military service, Christian saw firsthand how government sponsored healthcare can work. Okay. In Congress, he will fight to guarantee access to care by expanding Medicare, strengthening Medicaid, and ensuring coverage includes dental, vision, and hearing. Good. He will work to address the maternal mortality crisis impacting black women and stops efforts by Trump and his allies to gut the programs families rely on. Everyone deserves care when they need it, no exceptions. So basically saying everything but the words Medicare for all and single payer health care. But based on the wording there, it's describing Medicare for all. It's describing a single payer health care, just not by name. So I mean that depending on the candidate, that can be a red flag if they refuse to say the words. But you have to also look at the rest of their platform and see, who else is supporting them. So this is someone that's already gone through a primary election, and they have a large policy platform. And we'll go back and see a few more here. Where would be minimum wage? Standing up for workers. Here it is. So Christian believes every worker deserves fair pay, safe workplace, and the freedom to organize. Okay. Okay, and then here we go. Fight to expand paid family leave, raise the minimum wage, and ensure workers have access to training programs that opens doors to better opportunities. That's a fantastic point that often gets left out. A lot of our workforce aren't able to access jobs just because of lack of education and training. In terms of the minimum wage, I don't see a number here. That can be a red flag. You want to raise the minimum wage, but to what number? In my opinion, it should be at least 15 an hour. Of course, that's going back 10 years ago. We were fighting for 15. Should be probably upwards of 20 now, with how prices have risen over these last couple of years. On the other hand, if Christian's take is, I'm for raising the minimum wage, I'm not putting a number here because I'll go with whatever the consensus is among the other members of Congress, a fair enough point, and something that I or you shouldn't hold against a candidate for not necessarily putting a number there. So overall, a very strong policy page. And this is a candidate that I would personally support. And again, if you're someone who cares about endorsements, this is a candidate that has a tab for endorsements. Now, depending on the endorsements, that can be an added benefit to some people making a decision on a candidate. Christian here has national and local elected officials. Looks like a pretty good list of them. And also unions and organizations. So he's got a couple good endorsements here. So overall, a pretty solid campaign page, good policies that I would personally find worth supporting, and overall a decent candidate. He's moving on to a general election with another Democrat, Amanda Edwards. Let's just see what her campaign page is about and compare. So on Amanda's page, she has the following tabs: Meet Amanda, Volunteer, Endorsements, On the Issues, and Redistricted Map. Now, the important tabs is the ones that will discuss the candidate's platform. And again, whether they call it their platform, policies, priorities, issues. So we'll start there on the issues. Now, this time, so a different layout than what Christian was working with. Doesn't seem to be as much information. So let's read this here. We deserve a healthier 18th congressional district. That looks hard. All right. We deserve a healthier 18th congressional district. We deserve a safer 18th congressional district. We deserve a more resilient 18th congressional district. More equitable. Right. So we're just repeating the same thing. So the 18th congressional. The 18th Congressional District deserves to be healthier, safer, resilient, equitable. Fair enough. How do we get there? An 18th Congressional District where everyone can thrive, not just a few at the top. I agree. Past few years, have shown us what happens when we allow leaders who prioritize personal gain over the well being of the people they serve. Under Trump's leadership, our country has seen devastating attacks on our democracy, divisive rhetoric that weaken communities, and policies that have harmed the middle class and working families. We need a change. We need someone who works for the people, not against us. All right, so it all sounds okay. So, a thriving 18th district, expand access to capital training and other resources for small business owners, strengthen the rights to workers to unionize and collectively bargain. Good. Fight for a true living wage. Good. Again, no number here, but not a deal breaker. Create opportunities for workers by expanding apprenticeship programs. Good. Tackle the soaring costs of higher education. Good. Fight back against Trump administration's attacks. Good. So, nothing too exciting, but nothing terrible. A healthy district, so probably healthcare. Fight for healthcare access for everyone. Gaps in the ACA. But nothing about expanding Medicare. So when you're looking for, and again, as I focus on the healthcare argument, you will see on some Democratic policy pages where they won't support a single payer healthcare system, whether they call it just a single payer universal system or Medicare for all. They won't use those terms because they don't believe in it. A lot of centrists and liberals out there, the terms that they will use is we will increase access to healthcare. We will provide a public option, or like Pete Buttigieg called it in the 2020 election when he was running, Medicare for all who want it, which is just another way of saying a public option. If you see those in a campaign's page, run. They are not a candidate for this time. They in terms of healthcare, we cannot accept any more half measures. The answer is single payer, a universal healthcare system, everybody in, nobody out. The doctors and providers themselves would still be private practice, would still be private providers. They work for themselves or work for their companies. That wouldn't change. But the payment system behind the scenes, you take out the for profit middleman of the insurance companies and the PBMs, all of that nonsense bureaucracy involved, and that lowers costs and actually increases everyone's ability to go find a doctor and get the health care they need. That's why that's important to me. And so when I see Amanda's page here only say fight for healthcare access for everyone and only plugging gaps in the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, that's not good enough. And we got some other things here, but I made my point. In terms of these two candidates, Christian has by far the better policy page. Has more information, more topics, and just slightly more detailed. Amanda's page is not bad. If, for example, if she were a candidate that was running in a different district and she was the Democratic candidate versus a Republican, great. She'd be fine. Not what we need for this moment, but your worst Democrat will always be better than your best Republican. Just a general rule. So I think with that, that wraps up the Texas 18 special election. So let's now move on to what is going to be the final topic for this video, which is the primary elections of 2026. And again, we're going to start with the first 5 states that have contests beginning in March 3rd of 2026, which include Texas, Arkansas, North Carolina, and then we'll talk briefly about Mississippi, which has its primary on March 10th, and the Illinois primary on March 17th. Continuing with Texas, we discussed their 18th district. In addition, they have 37 other House seats and 1 Senate seat up for re-election. Unfortunately, I did not have the time to look for a candidate for every seat, and even if I did, this video is getting too long as it is. The candidate filing deadline for Texas began on November 8th and closes on December 8th. As we continue this primary season, I will be attempting to make more videos covering the other state primaries and revisiting the 5 states covered today once I have more information. So far, there are 2 incumbents I believe are worthy of re-election, and 1 candidate with a promising campaign page that has been endorsed by Track APAC. But first, a quick word about Al Green of Texas's 9th District. I wish I could still support him for re-election, but he is also 78 years old. I mention him because of his voting record and recent action to try to impeach Trump back in June after his bombing of Iran's nuclear facilities. Sadly, only 78 other members of the House made the correct vote. At this time, I do not know what his plans are or what other candidates are running for Texas's 9th District, but I would hope he makes the choice to retire, allow someone younger to take the seat, as opposed to just being another Democrat to die while still in office. Moving on to the other 2 incumbents are Jasmine Crockett in the 30th District and Greg Kaiser in the 35th. Jasmine won her first election in 2022, and to my knowledge has had an okay voting record, such as supporting Al Green's impeachment effort in June and refuses to take APAC money. Between that and the moments I've seen of her angering Republicans in Congress is good enough for why I feel Jasmine is worth supporting, or at least giving her campaign page a quick view here. So on Jasmine's page, the first thing I noticed that I'm not a fan of, I don't see the policies. On the other pages we've come across so far, there's usually something at the top where it's meet the candidate, their policies or their issues, contact, that kind of stuff. Here it's just sign up for the campaign. Now she does have that. You just have to scroll down. And here we are, meet Jasmine, endorsements, issues, etc. And some other information, donation, all that normal stuff. So let's find out, what does Jasmine fight for? So issues, and we got the standard different things: voting rights, healthcare, economy, education, environmental justice, equality, good, all the good stuff. And for examples, we'll read her healthcare and workers' rights sections. So we'll click on here, drops us down here. So healthcare. Jasmine believes healthcare is a human right. Good, like to see that. And will champion policies that increase coverage and access, keep costs low, and ensure every American can get the healthcare they need in their own community. Jasmine also believes we should cover the full spectrum of healthcare, including dental, vision, mental health, and reproductive freedom. So again, these are words that would be components of supporting Medicare for all or a single payer healthcare system, but the policy page is still lacking those terms, and that's a red flag to me. Moving on to the workers' rights section, Jasmine has been named the Workers' Champion by the Workers' Defense Fund for her advocacy and steadfast commitment to working people and families. She believes everyone should be paid a livable wage. Okay. Have the right to protections in the workplace, supports paid family and medical leave, and believes that one full-time job should be enough. Now, if it wasn't for the fact that Jasmine is an incumbent, this campaign page alone would probably not convince me to support her. In comparison, let's now look at Greg Kaiser's page, candidate for the 35th District. So when we go to Greg's page, already it's a lot clearer. We have his options up here: meet Greg, events, issues, store, etc. So again, we want to see what his issues are. A better world is possible if we fight for it, if we organize for it. And that's what we're trying to do here. So let's see here. Frequently asked questions. So he has 3 groups here. At least down in this part, it could be organized a little bit better. But on General 3 here, recognizing healthcare as a human right, Congressman Kaiser is a co-sponsor of Medicare for All. There we go. That's all I need to know about healthcare. If you wish to read more, you can. But that's what I'm looking for healthcare. As long as I see that or universal healthcare, single payer, perfect. I can move on and see what else they support. So again, I've been looking for a minimum wage. Let's see how he's fighting to create good paying union jobs and protecting workers' rights. Congressman Kaiser is a proud member of the Labor Caucus and supports legislation like the Protecting the Right to Organize, the PRO Act, a national paid sick days law, universal paid family and parental leave policy, the Raise the Wage Act that raises the minimum wage to 17 per hour, and Public Service Freedom to Negotiate Act and other bills that support union power. So just those two sections right there compared to everything else we've covered so far, they're not hiding what they believe in behind vague platitudes. They are coming right out, straightforward. I support Medicare for all. I support the PRO Act. I support the Raise the Wage Act. Not just stating the policies they believe in, but even tying it to legislation that is there on the floor, but does not have the support of enough decent Congresspeople. And that's why we need to replace them. So Jasmine, eh. Greg Kaiser, an actual fighter in Congress. Now in Texas, there's also Zishan Hafiz, who is running for the 33rd district. Let's check out his page. A new voice, a bold vision. I like that. So again, he's got a homepage. Meet Zishan. Why we win. Zishan's plan. Policies. Okay, so he has a couple different ways to get to his policies, which, compared to the candidates who have none, I like that there's options. Let's just click here. Zishan's plan. So, Zishan's vision. Comprehensive approach to creating a better future for Texas and the nation. Fantastic. So, looks like he has everything just listed out, right? Easy enough for us to see. So, economic justice for all working families. Living wages, $20 an hour. Boom. Right there, easy to see. Job creation. Investing in local jobs, infrastructure, clean energy, build a sustainable future. Love it. What else we got? Healthcare. Universal coverage, Medicare for all. Boom. Didn't have to search. Wasn't difficult. Wasn't hidden behind 3 tabs or anything. Right there. All right. What else we got? Immigration and human rights. A compassionate approach for all. Abolish ICE. Pathway to citizenship. You see how easy this can be? Already we are 3 for 3. And he still has an entire page. Education. Civil rights. And again, it's very easy to make a website and just write things down. I hear you. But this is the first steps of a vetting process. Who is a candidate? What are they running for? And their website is a quick and easy way for them to give us that information. But again, it doesn't end with just the website. Also check out any media events that they've done. Have they done any videos? Are they doing campaign events? Are they meeting with local residents and doing different community events? So all of that is part of it. But this is why I like Zishan's page so much. The information, it's right there, easy to read. It's not hidden. And the last thing is with their Senate race. Again, I didn't have enough time to really dig into their Senate race, but just a reminder, Ballotpedia, great resource. So here for their Texas Senate race, you can see general election. They've got 4 independent candidates running. They've got 4 candidates in a Democratic primary. And they've got a whole clown show for the Republican side. So again, if you're in Texas, you want to learn more about the Senate race, I'll try and cover it again at another time, but for now, you'll have to do that research on your own. Now, Arkansas was originally the first state I was going to talk about. Their filing deadlines for candidates, it opened on November 3rd and closed as of November 11th. So whoever the candidates are at this point, it's now locked in. So when I was originally looking at Ballotpedia for them, I came across a couple bits of information here. Some of it which relates back to the clip I showed you from Resistor Vic, where in the first district, it's 1 Democrat running unopposed. No real reason to bring any attention to that race. If they had a policy page worth discussing, I would have showcased it. In District 2, there are two candidates running, and when I checked out their campaign websites, neither of them had any policy information. If you don't have policy information, there's nothing for me to cover. So, with that, that brings us to House Districts 3 and 4. In District 3, there's a candidate by the name of Rob Ryerse. Rob is a candidate who I have seen run for office before. In 2018, he previously ran for the same seat, but as a Republican. He ran on the platform supporting Medicare for All and was endorsed by the group Brand New Congress. Sadly, he lost the primary to his Republican opponent. He has returned to try again, this time running as a Democrat. We will do a quick comparison between his policy page and the page of his Democratic opponent, Diana Lawrence. In House District 4, we have James Russell, who was originally running for the position of Senate. It was actually only in the last few days when I went back and checked Ballotpedia that I noticed him withdrawn his name, and then looking back at District 4, had seen that he had decided to run for that office instead. Now, James is a good example of how you could find out some information only for it to become incorrect in a week or less. And that will happen time to time. Candidates drop out or fail to make ballot requirements. It's part of the process and the candidate's job to meet those requirements. As for their Senate race, my support was going to be for James and showcase his campaign page, which I will still do, just it's now for him running for the 4th district. As for their Senate race, didn't have enough time to look more at their other candidates. So let's move on, taking a quick look at the difference between Rob's and Diana's campaign pages. Here on Rob's homepage, we can meet Rob, read his values, and more information on Arkansas's 3rd district. Let's learn a little more about his values. So the way that he has his policies, they're grouped together by some categories here. He's got faith, family, freedom. Okay, so 3 groups. Protect democracy, lead with honesty, take money out of politics. Very good. Fight climate change, better jobs and pay, raise the minimum wage. Good, that's something we're looking for. Does he give a number? Just read more quickly. Raise the minimum wage so no one working full-time lives in poverty. But no number. And that's okay, it's not a deal breaker. I prefer seeing a number, having the candidate take a stand on what they believe in, but not every candidate will give you the answer you want necessarily. So going back to our values, fair immigration, protect Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, paid leave, affordable housing, tax cuts for families, and then healthcare for all. Everyone should be able to see a doctor without worrying about cost. And then it goes on to say in detail here, healthcare is a human right. And should move toward a system where healthcare is guaranteed for everyone, not tied to your job, your income, or your luck. And just reading through here. So again, here's another candidate where they're going as far as describing a single-payer healthcare system without using the terms single-payer or Medicare for all. It's my belief that candidates shouldn't hide away from those terms, even in red Arkansas. But as far as candidates go, and compared to other candidates we have seen, Arkansas could do a lot worse. Now, of course, Rob's background is previously being a Republican candidate, so that might be of concern to Arkansas Democratic voters. So let's just take a quick look at Diana's page, see what policies that she's supporting. and just basing off policy, who's the better choice. So she's got her issues page here. And she's got a lot of text here, which compared to other pages makes it a little difficult for your immediate policies to just jump out at people. But then down here, she has a couple items listed. Citizens United case and money in politics. So assuming, once again, overturning Citizens United, getting money out of politics. Now, when you go through and read all of this, she discusses her disagreement with the Citizens United decision and goes into detail about the disastrous effects that it's had on our political system and the corrupting influence of money in politics. And then at the end of it, makes the case of, I want to limit the influence of money corrupting elections. And let's just check out healthcare here real quick. So again, takes us to another page. Healthcare, the numbers first. Talking about bankruptcies that have happened in the last few years. Get down here. The Affordable Care Act was merely a band-aid. Correct. Democrats did not take the bull by the horn when they had the chance, and now we must. We must take this opportunity of a government mess laid at our feet to rebuild. We must implement a national healthcare system. Okay. I will be developing the details of how I think we can achieve this over the coming months. And this was last revised in April of 2025. So in terms of what other candidates have said on healthcare, this statement does not leave me feeling inspired, doesn't leave me feeling that this candidate is fighting for Medicare for all or a single-payer healthcare system. They want to implement a national healthcare system, but how would that be? Is that just implementing a public option? Or is that going as far as a single-payer healthcare system? With Diana, I would have to find out more, see if she's spoken anywhere on the issue or has more information on her policy. Now, compared with Rob, even though he doesn't state the words universal healthcare, single-payer healthcare, or Medicare for all, he does still state healthcare is a human right. It should be guaranteed for everyone and not tied to your job, your income, or your luck. So we have two candidates here. If we just compare on the healthcare issue alone, both of them don't state Medicare for all, but I'd feel more comfortable supporting Rob over Diana, both because his campaign page is much clearer in how he states his policy beliefs, but also I have the previous information from him running before his endorsements through Brand New Congress and fighting for progressive policies, even though, yes, he was running as a Republican before. Now, again, it's going to be up to Arkansas's 3rd District voters, but I think Rob is the stronger candidate here of the two. Now, in terms of Arkansas's 4th District, the choice is a little easier for Democrats, seeing as how Russell's the only one running for that seat. So we won't spend too much time on his page. Just a quick highlight in terms of why I believe he's worth supporting. Go to his campaign page, go to his issues page. So he's got putting people first, economic fairness. All right, so is this where we're going to see minimum wage? We need fair laws that raise wages, make sure everyone gets equal pay for equal work, and treat all workers fairly. Fair enough. He has a fighting corruption section here, which the main highlight here is the rich should pay their fair share, and we also need to close tax loopholes and stop the games the super rich use to avoid paying taxes. Fair enough, I can agree to that. Better healthcare and prescription coverage. Americans pay way more for healthcare than people in other countries. True. Most people get insurance to their jobs, but it's often expensive, confusing, and doesn't cover enough. Again, true. We can fix this by expanding Medicare and moving toward healthcare for everyone. That means lower costs, better care, and fewer people falling through the cracks. Again, I agree. I think you could have gone the extra step and just said Medicare for all or a single payer healthcare system. But again, as I keep mentioning, these are Democrats running in Arkansas. They're not necessarily going to term or phrase things how I would prefer them. Doesn't mean that the candidate's not a good candidate, just means that they're running in a different district and are wording things to how they think will play better to the people of their district. Got education and job training, equal rights and opportunities for all, fix the housing crisis. Again, a very important policy that not every candidate page will talk about. Protecting our environment and natural resources. So, good list of policies. So, Russell's campaign page, it's not the worst. I wouldn't say it's the best either. Another middle of the road kind of campaign page where, at the very least, they're still putting their policies on the page for you to read, for you to find out, okay, what does this person represent? What are they going to fight for? If you go to a candidate's campaign page and they don't even have the policies listed, then at least for me, what that tells me is that they don't care about anything and they're not willing to put in the effort to fight for whatever policies they believe in. Because if they can at least write them down on a website to inform you what they believe in, how can we believe that they're going to then fight for it? That brings us to the state of North Carolina. They are the final state with a primary on March 3rd of next year, with a runoff election on May 12th if necessary. Their filing deadlines have not opened yet. They open on December 1st and they close on December 19th. So as of right now, of the 14 House seats, there's only one seat I'll be talking about for this video, which is House seat number 9, the current Representative Richard Hudson, and we will discuss Richard Ojeda's campaign to replace him. For North Carolina's Senate seat, Thomas Tillis, the incumbent, will not be running again. Now, for some people who think North Carolina is a relatively red state, and yes, a majority of their House members are Republicans, their governor is Democratic, and with the correct candidates that have policies that inspire people, it is very possible for us to flip a lot of these seats to Democrats in 2026. But for that to happen, those candidates need to run for office, and we need to organize behind those candidates. Which brings me to Richard Ojeda. So, some information about Ojeda. This is not his first time running for an election. First time I've heard of Richard Ojeda was back in 2018 in West Virginia's 3rd District against Carol Miller. It was a close race. He only lost by 22,000 votes out of a total vote count of a little under 175,000 votes. Now, sure, I say close. I do acknowledge percentage-wise that is a 13-point difference. However, what is important to remember goes back to what I was showing earlier at the start of this video. While I do not know for the specific district what the voter turnout was, it would be safe to assume somewhere between 50 and 70%, somewhere around the national average, right? So these were the results of a candidate only 22,000 votes short of victory during a year when the electorate wasn't organized. How might these congressional election outcomes change with an informed and organized voting population? The only way to find out is by working towards that goal. To do this will not be easy, but there is more infrastructure and political momentum on the left to do this now than in previous years. As we spent time discussing policy pages, that alone should not be the last step in deciding who you vote for. Listen to how they speak about their policy platform, whether that's watching an interview or better yet, going in person to a town hall or some other in-person event. If I had more time, I wish I could have provided more video recommendations for many of the previous candidates mentioned. But in addition to time, the other difficulty is not every candidate has videos out there readily available of them discussing their platforms, and especially for newer candidates. This is one important function of the Lefty independent media on YouTube. As it ties in here, I'd like to give a quick shout out to some of the great channels with amazing people, all doing honest, great work and trying to make the world a more informed, better place. While there are far more content creators and groups out there that I will try to shout out another time, here are my personal top 5. Secular Talk, Breaking Points, The Majority Report, The Humanist Report, and Zateo. While I know I am not telling anyone on the populist or progressive left anything new here, the purpose of me stating this is for the potential conservative, libertarian, centrist, or liberal viewer, or someone who hasn't been political before, and provide them some options to learn more about news, politics, and policy to be more informed. Of course, everyone has slightly different preferences, so find the channel that you like best. Just be sure that they're an honest person actually informing you, not liars and grifters like so many of the right wing political commentators out there. I also want to shout out a newer podcast I came across recently. They're called the Bluelusional Podcast. They have been doing some great work interviewing candidates running for Congress. Here are 4 interviews of theirs with far more on their channel. By giving candidates a voice and therefore giving us an opportunity to hear their message and rally support around them, by us supporting each other and organizing in this way is our best path to defeating the Democratic establishment in these primaries and Republican fascists in the general election. Bringing it back to Ojeda, for those in North Carolina's 9th District and want to know more about him, I will recommend these 2 videos. Both of them are by the channel Secular Talk, which was the first political YouTube channel I subscribed to back in 2015. The top video on screen includes Ojeda talking about his policies after his loss in 2018, while considering a 2020 presidential run. The second video is more recent from late August, and Ojeda discusses his current campaign for North Carolina's 9th District. At this point in the video, if I am bringing attention to a candidate, you can safely assume they are a candidate who supports single-payer health care, raising the minimum wage, populist left, social democratic, or democratic socialist policies. Ojeda is for the most part no exception. Before moving on to Mississippi, just one quick policy point. In the past, Ojeda supported Medicare for All. On his current page, the language used is not as strong, much more similar to that of a liberal than a social democrat or democratic socialist. Now, of course, the obvious explanation is it's a tactical decision here. He is running in North Carolina, so the conventional wisdom is don't sound too far left, be more moderate. I disagree, at least specifically when it comes to the messaging around healthcare. I typically don't care for polls, but the one subject the mainstream media and poll addicts out there and outright ignore is on healthcare and single-payer systems. The exact number will change poll to poll, and depending on terms and descriptions used. But in general, over the years, Medicare for All or a single-payer healthcare system consistently gets around 70% approval by those surveyed. This even includes, when broken down by party lines, 50% of Republicans. Political candidates running in 2026 do not shy away from Medicare for All, no matter which district you're running in. Our healthcare system is broken, and we no longer have the time to keep wasting on half measures. Every other modern, developed, ethical nation has one form or another of a single-payer healthcare system. It is damn well past time we had our own too. The next primary election is scheduled for March 10th in the state of Mississippi. Due to time constraints, I wasn't able to research any candidates running in Mississippi. They have 4 seats in the House and 1 Senate seat up for election. While some Democrats would argue to not even waste time running in red districts, the truth is, with the right candidates, with the right policies on addressing affordability and the healthcare crisis in this country, those candidates can win. They just have to put in the work and talk with the voters. For those of you who live in Mississippi, for now, do your own research, look up Ballotpedia to find any candidates running in your district. If you don't see one worth supporting, but are ready to fight for change, then consider running for the office yourself. For Mississippi, their candidate filings open on December 1st and close on December 25th. The last state we will cover is Illinois. They are a state with 17 House seats and 1 Senate seat up for election. Their candidate filing deadline opened back on October 27th and closed on November 3rd. Their primary will occur on March 17th. We will discuss a few of their candidates before wrapping up today's video. As far as incumbents, starting with the 4th District, it is currently held by Chuy Garcia. Now, he was approaching the age at which I believe it is time to step aside and let someone else run. Apparently, that is sort of what Garcia did. He has decided not to run, but unfortunately made the choice at the last minute, with only his chief of staff being the only candidate to make the filing deadline for that seat. For those interested in learning more, here's a quick video by ABC7 Chicago. In the 3rd District, represented by Delia Ramirez, she is a candidate endorsed by Justice Democrats, meaning she supports a Justice Democrat policy platform, making her a candidate worth supporting. Moving on to the new candidates running for office, there are 4 campaigns to quickly bring attention to. Robert Peters, running for the 2nd District, is a candidate endorsed by Bernie Sanders and the group Our Revolution. My biggest critique of his campaign is his campaign page. We have gone through several pages with varying designs and policy ideas, and while a quick look through Robert's page may seem like a decent campaign page, it's got an About tab, endorsements, news, volunteer, contact, but there's something missing. He is missing the most critical piece of information, his policy page. I can't stress enough how important it is to have that information on your campaign site. On a positive note, I do like his news tab. As I mentioned before, it's important voters have access to interviews or other ways of hearing a candidate speak about their message. While Robert doesn't list his policies, which I hope he may consider updating his website to reflect those, there is still information on his site, particularly through this news tab, where voters can learn more about him. The next candidate is Junaid Ahmed for Illinois' 8th District. Now, he does have an issues tab and gives a little drop down here. So, standing up to Trump, protecting Social Security and Medicare, peace in Gaza and Palestinian self-determination, healthcare is a human right, a green, clean, and healthy future, building an economy that works for all of us, ending Russia's war on Ukraine, investing in quality education, equality for all, safe and thriving communities. Now, again, the common thing here, all those words sound great. What's important is the details, what kind of policies are written. But instead of me going through his issues page, I'd like to do something a little different here. What I like about Junaid's campaign site is this video he has attached to his homepage. It is a little under 3 minutes, but we won't listen to the whole thing. Let's just listen to the last minute here, where Junaid tells us what he will fight for in his own words.
It is time we turn the page on the special interests who put profit over people. It is time we send a progressive fighter to Washington. I believe in an economy that works for everyone, not just the wealthy few. Let's make it easier to get a job and start a small business. Affordable childcare should not be a luxury, it's a necessity. Every child deserves a strong start, and we must make college and vocational training accessible, so no dream is out of reach because of the cost. No family should choose between paying the rent or seeing a doctor. Healthcare is a human right, and I will fight to guarantee coverage for every American, period. The climate emergency is real, and we must secure our planet's future. That means investing in clean energy and standing up to corporate polluters who threaten our children's health. Every year, corporate special interests pour money into Washington, and our families pay the price. Well, I won't take a dime of their money. I don't work for them. I work for you. I am Junaid Ahmed. I am not a career politician. I'm your neighbor, your friend, a dad who wants better for our kids. Join me, volunteer, donate, or simply share this message. Together, we will write a new chapter for the American story and keep the dream alive for all of us.
Junaid's video here is fantastic, covering so many important issues that have been ignored by our current Congress for far too long. This is the type of representatives that we need to elect in 2026. Moderate or centrist or liberal Democrat will not do anymore. Their policies led to the rise of Trump. Fascism does not rise when things are going well in a country. And you're not going to defeat fascism with the same people that led you to it. The next candidate, Dylan Blaha, running for District 13. Like many of the candidates we've discussed so far, including the policies we just heard from Junaid, Dylan is also fighting for a similar list of policies. To save time, I won't go through the list again. Instead, let's move on to the final candidate for this video, Kat Abgazale for Illinois' 9th District. Kat's campaign page meets all the requirements that I prioritize. A campaign site with a policy page supporting Medicare for all, raising the minimum wage, and ending our financial and military support to Israel for their genocidal actions against the Palestinian people. We have discussed those points ad nauseum. However, here's what makes Kat's campaign unique and a leader of the campaigns we've discussed so far. Prior to her campaign, she was a journalist and YouTuber. She announced her campaign in this video back on March 24th and has been a trailblazer in campaign transparency and accessibility. Utilizing social media tools like YouTube and Twitch has been a great opportunity to bring visibility to her campaign and another method to raise campaign funds. While running, she has used her platform to inform her voters and future candidates the behind-the-scenes info on how to run for office and things like reports for the FEC, the Federal Elections Commission. Throughout her campaign so far, she has done several events where the entry was donating various products for different charities. She describes her mutual aid-based campaign in this video. These are the extra steps necessary to meet your constituents and provide real support to your community in the process. If all this wasn't enough, Kat has also been joining protesters outside the Broadview ICE facility. She has shown no fear, not back down, not even when being assaulted by America's domestic terrorists. What makes her campaign strategies so brilliant is that she is trailblazing a path for other candidates to run successful campaigns. By having events that are open to the community and by using your campaign to help gather resources needed by that community for that community, it's not only great politics, but also being a kind, decent person, traits lacking from many Americans at this moment. This is a strategy that more candidates should adopt. These mutual aid campaign events builds trust with the voters, and at election time, we will see that trust turn into votes. And trust really is the biggest component that the Democratic Party has lost over the years. It is the result of failed policies, failed candidates, and their weakness that has led to the Democratic Party to have a 29% approval rating. Probably even lower now after the Senate Democrats ended the shutdown and got nothing in return. Back in 2008, Barack Obama ran on hope and change. Once elected, instead, we got a right-wing healthcare plan. The war criminals in the Bush administration never saw accountability or a jail cell, nor those in the financial sector who crashed our economy. These were all contributing factors to Trump's rise to power in 2016. Other Democratic disappointments include John Fetterman, who, as a Pennsylvanian, I am deeply angered that I supported him. To then see him support both Trump's fascist administration and support Israel's fascist administration is a complete disgrace to the principles that I believe in and why I voted for him. Joe Biden's support for Israel's genocide and Kamala failing to distance herself from Biden is why millions of Americans decided not to vote for Kamala Harris in 2024 as compared to Biden's support in 2020. Supporting candidates can be anxiety-inducing to say the least. There is a component of trust and faith you are placing in someone to not be a lying scumbag or get into office to only do a 180 on every belief they had campaigned on. That is why millions of Americans don't vote and abandon political engagement altogether. For those of you who this may apply to, please consider the fact nothing will ever improve if we don't put in the effort to make real change. There is a path to do this. In the early 2010s, the predecessor of the MAGA movement, the Republican Tea Party, organized and gained seats, eventually gaining enough to control the Republican Party and helped lead to the rise of Trump. Now, the Democratic base must organize to vote out the weak failures in our party and move it to the left, move it to the lenses of democratic socialism or at least social democracy. Priority one is bringing an end to the Trump regime. Then we fight for universal policies to address and solve the affordability and healthcare crises in this country. That is the purpose of this video and the information I have discussed with you today. To elect a brand new Congress, we need two things. We need politicians worth supporting, and we need a network to inform the public when those politicians run for office. For those who may argue that we can't reform the Democratic Party or that we will fail, remember this. Any political party is just a vehicle to help candidates run for office and get elected. The point is not to defend the Democratic Party or their establishment. They have failed the American people. It will take a new slate of congressional candidates to end the American nightmare under Trump. While the Democratic Party may technically hold a little under 50% in both the House and Senate, the reality is we need to replace a majority in both chambers. Unless more information is brought to my attention about other current members of Congress, the only incumbents worth re-electing are these 13 on screen. That's it. 535 members of Congress, and we got about 13, plus a handful of others that will either soon retire or die in office. That's the only representation in Congress we the people have. The other members there work for corporate interests, financial interests, military interests, and Israeli interests. Not us. As you proceed on your political journeys, vetting candidates and establishing your political beliefs, I would like you all to keep the following in mind. Look at who is running in the congressional races in your area. Use Ballotpedia and the other resources available to you, and most importantly, use your critical thinking skills. Deciding who you vote for, if you even vote at all, is your decision to make. No person, no candidate, or campaign is perfect, and they might not campaign the way you want or have a background to your exact preferences. But if a candidate is the best option available in a primary, and certainly in the general election at this moment, don't let the dream of a perfect candidate prevent you from supporting a good candidate. As the Trump administration continues their domestic and international terrorism, we need a Congress to use their impeachment authority to stop this. Additionally, if you don't see a candidate that represents you or your community, then if you view politics through a social democratic or democratic socialist lens, now is the time for you to run for office, whether for 2026 or start planning for 2028. We need as many social democratic and democratic socialists to run for Congress. They are the only candidates with a spine and a vision to win more than just 50% of the vote. A candidate who fails to inspire and build a larger voter base will not be able to overcome Republican voter suppression tactics that they have been using for years prior and will continue to use in the future elections. If that is something you are not familiar with, then I would highly recommend you looking into Greg Palast's work, including his news documentary, Vigilantes, Inc. For those of you still listening, thank you for joining me today. By organizing and working together is our only opportunity to bring an end to this nightmare through peaceful, democratic means. Unfortunately, for those of us who studied or understand history, fascism has not typically been voted out. But let's start with electing a brand new Congress in 2026, and we will go from there. Over the next few months, I will be attempting to make more videos, including more candidate spotlights as we approach the primary elections. If you like what you heard, please hit that like button, the subscribe button, give this video a share. Please help the channel grow and get the information out there. If any of you listening would like to support the work I am doing, please consider throwing me $1 over on my Patreon. If you would like to hear more details about some of the political lenses and other political terms I've used throughout this video, or for those looking for a video to share with friends and family who are completely uninformed on political ideologies, perhaps your right-wing uncle at this year's Thanksgiving table, then I highly recommend my second episode of a secular lefty chat on the political spectrum. I identify 8 political lenses used or discussed in the United States and why the winning combination to address the affordability and healthcare crises in our country is social democracy and democratic socialism. With all that said, thank you again for listening, and take care.